Okay, so meet gangsters Gareth Wrenn, Amir Khan, Miguel and Mohammed Hamid. These four people were part of a Nottingham gang that were responsible for terrorising the local public with a loaded gun, police have said. Apart from brandishing the firearms, the notorious Nottingham gang was also responsible for flooding heroin and cocaine across the Nottingham area and forcing drug addicts to partake in doing more drugs, in some cases to the point of being indebted to the gang. These idiots were both ruthless and cold-hearted. Police records state the loaded weapon they would run around the city with was frequently used to intimidate drug users and their families. If I had conjecture, then it's not far to say that these drug sellers were advancing drug dealers their copious amounts of heroin and cocaine and forcing the drug users to pay an inflated price that they could not possibly afford to pay back. So, in order to recoup their money, the gang would go to the known family members pretending to the drug users and cause a ruckus, i.e. demanding money off them with threats and other forms of intimidation that these idiots do. May I remind you, known drug users that are reliant on hard drugs have no moral compass, they have no empathy, they are physically and emotionally incapable of showing emotion. They will not bat an eyelid if your brother or mum or dad or uncle was assaulted or shot. All they care about is their fix or their next high. So, Nottinghamshire Police says they were able to take more than £24,000 worth of drugs and cash off the Nottingham streets when they arrested most of the organised criminal gang. That being said, only 3 members were arrested. One of the gang members went into hiding when he realised officers were investigating him. Again, in order to remain a hold on the profitable drug business, these gang members carried a loaded handgun with 8 rounds of ammunition in order to assert control over vulnerable people, i.e. the drug users, or crackheads, whatever you want to call them. During the course of the investigation, Detective Chief Inspector of Nottinghamshire Police, who led the investigation, says they had discovered several vehicles being used to store drugs and guns. It was also ascertained, or at the very least suggested, that Gareth Wrenn was the head honcho of the criminal gang organisation. He was the one who was being observed controlling the supply of Class A drugs and restocking the vehicles. He would then take his brethren, Khan and Hamid, to sell drugs. Dennis was the person who would store the drugs and cash for the group, and sometimes he would sell drugs himself also. Police first attempted to break up the criminal gang enterprise in March 2019 when Nottinghamshire Police seized the vehicles that were used to house drugs and guns. During the execution, police recovered a large quantity of heroin and cocaine, mixing agents and a handgun, and compatible ammunition, which meant that they had a guy who knew how to make bespoke bullets for the gangs. Next, they searched known addresses in order to find Gareth Wrenn, who had already fled to Nottingham thanks to his mates Dennis and Khan. That is what I call a brotherhood. Unfortunately, Dennis couldn't get away. When he was arrested, police found him in possession of £8,000 cash and a quantity of heroin totalling more than £5,000. While police continued to search for the mastermind behind the Nottingham gang, Mohammed Hamid had taken him to Sheffield to lay low, but he was arrested in April of 2019. Hamid was arrested in September of 2019 and he was found in possession of heroin and cannabis at the time of his arrest. Forensic evidence linked every single gang member to the drugs, the vehicles, the money and the handguns. In total, £14,000 was recovered, 8 live bullets and heroin and cocaine to the tune of £10,000. Detective Chief Inspector Richard Bull of Nottinghamshire Police says this was an organised drugs ring, making large profits by bringing misery to drug users and their families. They had a firearm and bullets to enforce and maintain their business should their need arise, and hopefully today's sentence brings reassurance to the communities that this gang are now behind bars and this gun is off the streets. I would like to thank all the officers and staff of Nottinghamshire Police, Serious and Organised Crime Team and their wider colleagues. We have all worked long hours to bring these dangerous criminals to justice. The 4 men were sentenced at Nottingham Crown Court on Monday, December 21st. All 4 members pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs in Nottingham between October 2018 and April 2019. Wrenn and Hamid also pleaded guilty to possession of a firearm. Hamid also pleaded guilty to possession of ammunition without a licence and possession of Class A drugs with intent to supply in September 2019. Hamid was the loose cannon of the group, that is for sure. He was given a further 6 months on his sentence after pleading guilty to the assault of one of his co-defendants in February. Wrenn was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months, Hamid was sentenced to 9 years and 6 months, Khan was sentenced to 7 years and 7 months, and Dennis was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months. One thing, if I had the chance, I would like to ask the 4 gang members, while they're sitting in their cell eating noodles or chocolate or sipping on their cup of soups, was it all worth it? Getting served nearly double digits for selling drugs and rolling around the city with a loaded gun, would they change anything now? Safe.